So, you're gearing up for college, and that means one thing is probably looming large: the ACT. I know, it can feel like this huge, intimidating mountain. But what if I told you there's a clear path right to the top? Well, that's exactly what we're going to do today. Think of this as your personal roadmap to not just taking the ACT, but absolutely cracking it. Okay, before we even get into the strategies and the nitty-gritty, let's talk about the goal. What is that one magic number? That score that makes an admissions officer pause, take a second look, and say, wow, we need to look at this applicant.
That number is 35. And get this, that's not just some impossibly high score. It's the average for students who get into powerhouse schools like MIT and Caltech. Now, I know what you might be thinking. 35? No way. But hang with me. We're going to break down exactly how that score is built, and more importantly, how you can start working your way towards it. Let's call it our North Star for this whole journey.
So, here's our game plan. We're going to cover 5 key things. We'll start with what's new on the 2026 ACT, because a lot has changed. Then we'll decode your score, look at the target numbers for top colleges, cover some proven strategies to boost your score, and finish with a seriously powerful tactic called super scoring. All right, let's dive in. First things first, the test itself. And listen, if you've been getting advice from older siblings or friends, you're going to want to pay super close attention here. The ACT has gone through its biggest transformation ever, and pretty much every single change is designed to benefit you, the student. For what felt like forever, the ACT was this grueling 3-hour test marathon. But starting in late 2025, a new enhanced ACT rolled out, and by 2026, it became the new standard. The big takeaway? The test is now fundamentally more flexible and, honestly, a whole lot less stressful than it used to be.
So let's get into the specifics, because this is where it gets really good. The test is a full hour shorter. You get about 25% more time per question, which is a total game changer for pacing. The science section, it's now optional for a lot of schools. You can retake just one section if you mess up, and you get your scores back in as little as 2 days for the online version. Every one of these changes puts you more in control and cuts down on that test day anxiety.
Okay, so you've taken this new Streamlines test. Awesome. But how do a bunch of right answers turn into that one big, all-important score? Let's pull back the curtain and demystify this whole process. It's actually a pretty simple 3-step process. First, you have your raw score. That's just the number of questions you got right. And here's the crucial part. There is no penalty for guessing, so you should answer every single question. Then, that raw number is converted into what's called a scaled score, from 1 to 36 for each section. And finally, those section scores are just averaged together to create your final composite score. That's it. Simple as that. So, what does a good score even mean? This chart really puts it all into perspective. If you're in that 32 to 36 range, that's exceptional. You're in the top 2% of everyone taking the test. A 28 to 31 is still excellent, putting you in the top 10%. And a 24 to 27 is a really solid, good score, meaning you're in the top quarter of test takers. This helps you figure out a realistic target for yourself. Now let's connect those numbers to actual universities. This is where a score on a piece of paper turns into a key that can unlock the door to your absolute dream school. The most important term you need to know here is the middle 50%. This isn't the lowest score they accept or the highest. It's the sweet spot. It's the range where the bulk of admitted students actually land. If your score is in, or even better, above this range, your application is looking really strong. And just take a look at this. For schools like Harvard and Stanford, that middle 50% range is consistently 33 to 35. For tech giants like MIT and Caltech, it's even tighter, a 34 to 36. All of a sudden, that goal becomes very, very real. You now know exactly what you're aiming for. Okay, knowing the target is one thing. Hitting it is something else entirely. So, let's shift gears from understanding the test to actively preparing to beat it. This is your game plan for a higher score. Even with more time per question, the number one challenge on the ACT is still the clock. You have to be ruthlessly efficient. A good target to aim for is about 36 seconds per question in English and a full minute in math. The only way this starts to feel natural is to practice with a timer. Now, this next tip might sound kind of obvious, but the math behind it is what's so powerful. It is way easier to gain points in your weakest area than to squeeze one more point out of your strongest. Just think about this. A tiny 2-point increase in your lowest section can actually boost your overall composite score by half a point. That is a massive return on your study time. I'm going to say it again because it is that important. There is no penalty for wrong answers, 0. That means you have to answer every single question. Even if you're totally guessing, take 2 seconds to eliminate the obviously wrong choices first. That just boosts your odds. Never, ever leave an answer blank. All right, a quick but important detour, because I know a lot of you are probably wondering about the SAT. The choice is totally yours, but you should know the key differences. The ACT generally has faster pacing, but lets you use a calculator on all the math. The SAT has longer reading passages and a whole math section where you can use a calculator. The best way to know which one is for you? Honestly, just take a practice test of each and see how it feels. All right, let's get into the advanced tactics. These next 2 features of the modern ACT are, and I'm not exaggerating, absolute game changers. This is how you can get a serious strategic advantage. First step is super scoring. The idea is so simple but so powerful. Colleges that superscore will look at all of your different ACT attempts, cherry pick your single best score from each individual section, and then combine them to create a brand new, higher superscore. This table shows it perfectly. So let's say on your first test, you crushed the reading section and got a 32, but your math was a 28. You study up, and on test 2, you nail the math with a 30 and boost your English to a 32. Now, even though your composite score was a 30 on both tests, a college that superscores will take your best English, your best math, and your best reading to create a new composite of 31. This is exactly why retaking the test can be so incredibly powerful. And this next feature pairs perfectly with superscoring. It's called section retesting. So instead of having to sit for that entire 2-hour exam again just to fix your math score, you can now retake only the math section. This saves you so much time, money, and stress, and it lets you laser focus your preparation. It's a huge win for students. So let's do a quick recap of the most important takeaways. The new 2026 ACT is more student-friendly than ever. Your composite score is just a simple average. You should be aiming for a 33 or higher for those top-tier schools. You absolutely need to use superscoring and section retesting to your advantage. And finally, say it with me, never, ever leave a question blank. So there you have it. We've covered the map, the strategies, and the destination. Now there's really only one thing left to do. Every journey, no matter how big, starts with a single step. For the ACT, that first step is taking one practice test to see where you stand today. So the only real question left is, are you ready to find your score?